Decisively, Guilliman summoned Captain Cato Sicarius to his command chamber. The stoic captain of the Second Company was renowned for his tactical brilliance and unyielding loyalty. Guilliman's azure eyes bore into Sicarius as he laid out the mission. "Callistra is on the brink of heresy," Guilliman said, his voice a steely command. "I am entrusting you and the Second Company to investigate these disturbances, root out the corruption and restore order with precision. We cannot afford to let this disease spread." Sicarius saluted crisply. "By your command, Primarch, we shall not fail." Meanwhile, in the shadowy depths of the rock, the mobile fortress monastery of the Dark Angels, another drama was unfolding. Lionel Johnson, the enigmatic Primarch of the First Legion, was ensconced in his private sanctum when the whispering ghosts of the past reached him. His agents' reports had surfaced of sightings of the fallen, those renegade Dark Angels who had betrayed the Emperor during the Horus heresy. These traitors were rumored to be hiding among the populace of Callistra, using the chaos sown by the heretical cult as a cover for their machinations. Their purpose was unknown, but their actions looked desperate. The fallen, well aware of being relentlessly hunted, are known for their covertness and discretion, rarely act in the open. L. Johnson's emerald eyes narrowed in contemplation. The shame of the fallen weighed heavily upon him, a stain upon his legion's honor that he was determined to cleanse. He summoned Supreme Grand Master Azrael and Interrogator Chaplain Asmodai, two of his most trusted and formidable warriors. "The fallen have resurfaced on Callistra," L. Johnson intoned, his voice a deep, resonant growl. "We must act swiftly and decisively. I will lead a detachment to Callistra myself. You two will accompany me. I have a sense this is no usual threat." Azrael, ever stoic, nodded. Asmodai's eyes gleamed with a fierce light. Thus, two mighty Primarchs set their forces on a collision course towards Callistra, each driven by a burning purpose. The seeds of discord had been sown and the fires of conflict were about to ignite. Altheon, the capital of Callistra, was a breathtaking city of grand white marble edifices and sprawling lush forests. The grandeur of its architecture, coupled with the serene natural beauty, made it a jewel of the Imperium. However, beneath this veneer of tranquility, tension simmered, and the scent of rebellion was in the air. The Ultramarines descended upon Altheon with the precision and discipline for which they were famed. Drop pods and Thunderhawk gunships pierced the sky, their arrival marked by the controlled chaos of military action. Within days they had secured key strategic points throughout the city, establishing their command post on the capital hill of Altheon. Guilliman's presence was a beacon of authority and confidence. His armor, resplendent with the sigils of Ultramar, gleamed in the sunlight, a stark contrast to the growing shadows of dissent. Guilliman stood on a raised platform in the center of the command post, surveying a holographic map of Altheon and its surrounding areas. His keen mind processed reports and data feeds. Something was off. Combat reports hinted toward the presence of space marines among the heretics, yet no sign of chaos. The Ultramarines soon after encountered unexpected resistance. Insurgents emerged from the shadows, engaging in guerrilla tactics and precise surgical strikes against the Imperium forces. What was most unsettling were the markings these insurgents bore, emblems and insignias reminiscent of the Dark Angels. This anomaly sparked a seed of suspicion in Guilliman's mind. Why were his brothers here, and what role did they play in this unrest? As the Ultramarines tightened their grip on Altheon, a different kind of storm was gathering. Under the cover of night, black ships descended silently from the sky, as stealthy as predators stalking their prey. The Dark Angels had arrived. Lionel Johnson personally led his warriors through the dense forests and ancient ruins that bordered the city. Their mission was clandestine and fraught with the weight of history. Hunt the fallen and cleanse their honor. L. Johnson moved with the grace of a hunting beast. His thoughts focused on the task at hand. The whispers of the fallen had haunted him for too long, and now, on Callistra, he had a chance to exorcise those spirits. He convened with Supreme Grand Master Azrael and Interrogator Chaplain Asmodai in a concealed outpost deep within the forest. At that time, the reports about heavy ultramarine presence were confirmed. "Our objective is clear," L. Johnson stated, his voice a low growl. "We will find the fallen and bring them to justice before Guilliman does, at all costs." Azrael broke silence. "And what orders if we encounter another chapter? What if they obstruct our progress?" Asmodee's expression was one of grim determination. He knew the answer. "At all costs." Lion confirmed his command. The Dark Angels moved with a cunning born of millennia of warfare, establishing a network of hidden outposts and patrols. They scouted the terrain, their actions masked by the natural cover of the forest and the ruins. Their presence on Callistra was a shadowy counterpoint to the Ultramarines' open display of might. As the days turned into weeks, the tension between the two forces grew. Guilliman's Ultramarines faced increased skirmishes with insurgents who seemed to have intimate knowledge of the city's layout and defences. The presence of Dark Angels, yet elusive, became obvious and deepened Guilliman's dark suspicion and unease. In the dead of night, Guilliman called a council of his senior officers. "We face more than mere heresy here," he said, his voice measured but tinged with underlying tension. "There is another force at play. Heretics are either controlled or assisted by the fallen, and our dark brothers know of it. The fact that they act on their own and did not contact us to coordinate means possible conflict." Captain Sicarius, his blue armor scarred from recent battles, stepped forward. "My lord, in case of direct contact, should we engage?" Guilliman's eyes narrowed. "We must confront this mystery head-on. Prepare a delegation. We will seek out the Lion and demand answers. I will lead this mission myself. Until then, avoid unnecessary bloodshed." Meanwhile, within the dense forest, L. Johnson and his warriors continued their hunt. The Lion's heart was heavy with the knowledge that the heresy on Callistra might be tied to the darkest chapter of his legion's history, and Guilliman might uncover its pages first. The stage was set. The seeds of discord had taken root, and a storm was brewing on Callistra. The paths of Guilliman and L. Johnson were on a collision course, driven by duty, glory, and the shadows of their respective past. The fate of Altheon, and perhaps the Imperium itself, hung in the balance. The ruins of Altheon's grand palace, once a symbol of the city's former glory, now stood as a testament to the chaos that had enveloped Callistra. Broken columns and shattered statues lay scattered across the marble floor, and the once magnificent throne room was now a desolate expanse of decay. It was here, amidst the remnants of grandeur, that two of the Imperium's greatest leaders would face each other. Guilliman and Lion L. Johnson, each a paragon of their respective legions, stood in stark contrast to the devastation around them. The tension between the two primarchs was palpable, an electric charge that seemed to thrum in the air. Guilliman's cerulean eyes were sharp and assessing, while L. Johnson's emerald gaze was cold and unwavering. "Why are your warriors here, brother?" Guilliman's voice was measured, each word carrying the weight of his authority and concern. His hand rested on the hilt of the Emperor's sword, not as a threat, but as a reminder of his readiness. L. Johnson's gaze did not waver. "There are secrets here that you do not understand. The fallen are my burden to bear. This is my fight." His voice was low, almost a growl, the intensity of his emotions barely contained. Guilliman's fist tightened around the hilt of his sword, his knuckles turning white. "Your duty? We face a threat to the Imperium, not just your honor. We must act as one." There was a plea in his voice, a desperate hope that his brother would see reason. The Lion's face darkened, shadows playing across his features. "Is this a suggestion or a command?" His voice was resolute. "This is absurd. Why do I see hostility when I offer a helping hand? Can't a brother avenge his brethren honor, since when having allies is a disgrace? Is this just a facade to hide your endless secrets and schemes you're so afraid might come to the Emperor's light? You are not him. I do not answer to you. Leave these heretics to me or face the consequences." The argument escalated, each primarch's words cutting deep, like blades drawn from scabbards. Guilliman's frustration boiled over, his sense of duty to the Imperium clashing violently with L. Johnson's unyielding sense of personal vendetta. "We cannot afford to be divided," Guilliman insisted, his voice rising. "The ruin storm isolates us, the traitor legions close in on terror, and here we are, bickering over past sins. The Imperium needs us united." L. Johnson's response was swift and cutting. "United under your rule, no doubt. You want me to fall in line with your principles, your vision, your empire? What if I would? Whom would you subjugate next? Sanguinius? Does it bother you so much that it is not you that was chosen as the new emperor? Guilliman's eyes flashed with anger. Believe it or not, brother, but I think of the Imperium and its subject long before myself. The concept, I am sure, is very hard for you to grasp. Their words echoed through the ruined palace, each syllable laced with years of unspoken rivalry and unaddressed grievances. They stood, locked in a silent battle of wills, neither willing to back down. The tension between them was a palpable force threatening to ignite into something far more destructive. Enough, Guilliman finally said, his voice a low rumble. We will solve this here on Callistra. You have spoken truly. I am not the Emperor, but I am his sword and his wrath. Guilliman unsheathed his sword. L. Johnson's eyes blazed with defiance. I am not here to fight you, but I have a mission. I hope you will find wisdom and restrain yourself from interfering. He suddenly scoffed. You accuse me of secrecy, self-righteousness and ambition, yet mark my words, it is you that will deliver the first blow. With heavy hearts and minds weighed down by unresolved conflict, the two primarchs turned and walked away, their paths diverging once more. The grand palace of Altheon, now a silent witness to their discord, seemed to shudder under the strain of their parting. Outside, the night had fallen, cloaking the city in darkness. The Ultramarines and Dark Angels, unaware of the full extent of their leaders' confrontation, continued their operations, each side wary of the other. The fragile non-aggression between the two legions teetered on the edge of collapse, the seeds of discord sown deep within their ranks. As Guilliman and L. Johnson retreated to their respective camps, the echoes of their argument lingered in the air, a haunting reminder of the schism that threatened to rend them apart. The fate of Callistra, and perhaps the Imperium itself, hung in the balance as two of its greatest champions grappled with their ideals and the shadows of their past. Days turned into weeks, and the situation on Callistra grew increasingly dire. The once thriving planet was now a battleground, with the heretical cult exploiting the growing discord between the Ultramarines and Dark Angels to spread chaos and confusion. The whispers of sedition that had started this conflict were now screams of open defiance, echoing through the streets and across the plains. Inevitably, the Astartes' blood was spilt by their brothers. Guilliman, ever the master strategist, deployed his forces with meticulous precision. Tactical squads were sent to secure vital locations, establishing strongholds in key areas of Altheon. Devastators, armed with their formidable heavy weaponry, were positioned on high ground, providing a withering hail of covering fire to control the city's major thoroughfares. Predator tanks rumbled through the streets, their turret-mounted autocannons and sponson las cannons creating an impenetrable wall of firepower that deterred any would-be attackers. Every move Guilliman made was calculated, showcasing his unparalleled strategic thinking and command over his legion. However, the Dark Angels were not to be outdone. Renowned for their mastery of stealth and subterfuge, they launched a series of guerrilla attacks that disrupted Guilliman's carefully laid plans. Raven-wing bikers, swift and deadly, conducted hit-and-run raids on ultramarine supply lines and command posts, striking with pinpoint accuracy before vanishing into the dense forests and ruins. Deathwing Terminators, clad in their impenetrable tactical dreadnought armor, emerged from hidden tunnels and hidden passages to launch devastating surprise assaults on fortified positions. Their presence was a ghostly spectre that haunted Guilliman's forces, striking fear into even the bravest of warriors. The tension between the two legions reached a boiling point. Skirmishes and clashes became increasingly frequent, each side growing more wary and suspicious of the other. The Ultramarines saw the Dark Angels' tactics as a betrayal, a knife in the back from supposed allies. The Dark Angels, in turn, viewed the Ultramarines as overzealous and heavy-handed, their rigid tactics unsuited to the fluid and unpredictable nature of the conflict on Callistra. The tipping point came one stormy evening when an Ultramarine patrol discovered a hidden cache of heretical artifacts in a Dark Angels outpost. The discovery sent shockwaves through Guilliman's forces. To him, This was irrefutable evidence of the Dark Angel's complicity in the heretical uprising. Amongst the artifacts was a proof, carefully placed there by Zench, that Lion Johnson had the chance to upper-hand Luther, the first fallen and his closest advisor, and prevent the destruction of Caliban. However, Lion hesitated, and Imperium paid a dear price for his indecision. It became clear why Lion was so eager to keep secrets and hunt all the fallen himself to avoid public disgrace. Guilliman called a council of war, his commanders gathering in the command post to discuss their next move. The atmosphere was tense, the air thick with anticipation and anger. "Brothers," Guilliman began, his voice a resonant boom that echoed through the chamber. "The Dark Angels are not just interlopers, they are collaborators. We must act decisively to root out this treachery and cleanse Callistra of this corruption. Lion will face justice for his treachery." His commanders nodded in agreement, their faces grim and resolute. The decision was made. The Ultramarines would move against the Dark Angels to purge the taint of heresy from their midst. Meanwhile, in the shadowy depths of their own command post, Lion L. Johnson received word of Guilliman's accusations. His face darkened, eyes blazing with a cold fury. "This is an outrage," he declared, his voice a dangerous whisper. Guilliman overstepped his bounds. "The fallen are our responsibility, our burden to bear. He has no right to interfere." The Supreme Grand Master Azrael and Interrogator Chaplain Asmodai, standing by his side, nodded in agreement. "We will have to stand our ground, my lord," Azrael said, his voice firm. "We cannot allow the Ultramarines to dictate our actions." L. Johnson's mind raced, considering his options. The time for subtlety and stealth was over. "Prepare the Legion," he ordered. "We will show Guilliman and his warriors the true might of the Dark Angels." As night fell, both legions mobilized for war. The Ultramarines, clad in their cobalt blue armor, marched in disciplined ranks through the city, their banners fluttering in the wind. The Dark Angels, cloaked in shadow and secrecy, moved through the forests and ruins like wraiths, their green and black armor blending seamlessly with the night. The first clash came at dawn. A squad of Ultramarine tactical marines, advancing through the ruins of a cathedral, was ambushed by Ravenwing bikers. The bikers struck with lightning speed, their plasma talons and twin-linked bolters cutting down the Ultramarines before they could react. The survivors regrouped, returning fire with their bolters and crack grenades, but the Ravenwing had already melted back into the shadows. Elsewhere, a Dark Angel's outpost was hit by a devastating artillery barrage from Ultramarine whirlwinds. The Deathwing Terminators stationed there held their ground, emerging from the smoking ruins to launch a counterattack. Their assault cannons and power fists tore through the Ultramarine lines. The planet trembled as both legions prepared for a full-scale war. The Ultramarines fortified their positions, setting up kill zones and overlapping fields of fire. The Dark Angels, masters of ambush and deception, laid traps and prepared for close-quarters combat. The air was thick with the promise of bloodshed, and the fate of Callistra hung in the balance. However, it was clear that Ultramarines are unlikely to win. Despite the discipline, heroics, and pristine tactics, Dark Angels resorted to treachery, low blows, and knew Ultramarine strategy all too well. In the heart of the city, Guilliman and L. Johnson faced each other once more, their eyes locked in a deadly stare. "This ends now," Guilliman declared, with a steely resolve. "I uncovered your sin. I accuse you of treason." L. Johnson nodded, his expression cold and determined. "I accuse you of weakness." As the sun rose over the battlefield, the two primarchs prepared for the final confrontation. The point of no return was reached. The duel between Guilliman and L. Johnson began with a thunderous clash, their immense forms casting long shadows in the dim light of the ruined cathedral. Guilliman's blade burned with righteous fire, while L. Johnson's lion sword hummed with ancient power, its edge glowing with a greenish hue. Their first strikes were a flurry of motion, a symphony of metal clashing against metal. Guilliman's strikes were precise and calculated, each one aimed to exploit a potential weakness in L. Johnson's defense. The lion, in contrast, fought with a primal ferocity, his attacks unpredictable and devastating. Guilliman feinted to the left, then spun around, bringing his sword in a sweeping arc aimed at L. Johnson's torso. The lion anticipated the move, parrying with his sword and countering with a powerful backhand strike that forced Guilliman to step back. The primarch of the Ultramarines recovered quickly, using the strength of his master-crafted, nigh-impenetrable armor of fate to block a series of rapid blows from L. Johnson. L. Johnson shifted his stance, adopting a more aggressive posture. He launched into a series of rapid, slashing attacks, his blade a whirl of motion. Guilliman parried each strike with his weapon and armor, then retaliated with a powerful thrust aimed at L. Johnson's shoulder. His idea was to find or create a weak point, and then strike through it, wounding his brother. The lion twisted his body, allowing the blade to pass by harmlessly, then stepped inside Guilliman's guard, delivering a punishing elbow strike to his ribcage. The force of the blow staggered Guilliman, but he quickly regained his footing. He activated the power field of his iron halo, crackling with energy. He struck with renewed vigor, each blow accompanied by a burst of electrical discharge. L. Johnson gritted his teeth as he absorbed the impacts, his own blade glowing brighter as he channeled his rage into his attacks. It was obvious. While Guilliman wanted to subdue Lion, the latter went for the kill. The duel raged on, the primarch's movements blurring into a dance of death. Guilliman's tactical mind sought patterns in L. Johnson's seemingly wild attacks, while the lion relied on his instincts and raw power. Guilliman spotted a momentary lapse in L. Johnson's defense and struck with all his might, aiming for the lion's arm. L. Johnson twisted his wrist, deflecting the strike, then countered with a powerful overhead slash. Guilliman raised a hand just in time, the impact sending shockwaves through his arm. He responded with a swift kick to L. Johnson's, followed by a downward slash aimed at his opponent's torso. The lion dodged to the side, then launched himself at Guilliman, tackling him to the ground. They grappled on the cathedral floor, their immense strength causing the ground to crack and buckle. Guilliman managed to roll to his feet, his sword held in a defensive position. L. Johnson was on him in an instant, his strikes a whirlwind of steel. Guilliman blocked and parried, each move precise and controlled. At that moment he felt overwhelmed, he felt eerie energy, he felt like he was fighting a greater demon, not his brother. L. Johnson's eyes burned with fury as he started to attack with his sword and shield, using it as a battering ram. The Emperor's shield was unbreakable and was able to return any blow it received back at the attacker. Guilliman had to adapt his defense. Guilliman's mind raced as he analyzed L. Johnson's new attack pattern. He activated the wrist-mounted bolter on his left arm, firing a burst of explosive rounds at L. Johnson. The lion dodged the projectiles, but the distraction gave Guilliman an opening. He lunged forward, his sword aimed at L. Johnson's torso. L. Johnson deflected the strike with his shield, then countered with a powerful uppercut from his blade. The blow glanced off Guilliman's shoulder armor, but the force of it sent him staggering back. The lion pressed his advantage, delivering a series of rapid slashes that pushed Guilliman to the brink. Guilliman used all his strength to launch himself into the air. He arced over L. Johnson, landing behind him with a thunderous crash. Before the lion could react, Guilliman struck with a powerful downward slash. L. Johnson spun around, his sword meeting Guilliman's in a firework of sparks. The two primarchs locked blades, their faces inches apart. Guilliman's eyes burned with determination. "This ends now, brother!" L. Johnson's lips curled into a snarl. "So be it." With a surge of strength, Guilliman pushed L. Johnson back. He followed up with a series of lightning-fast strikes, each one aimed at a vital point. L. Johnson parried and dodged, his movements a blur. He activated the power field of his lion helm and used this momentum of defense to strike his brother with a devastating blow. Guilliman thrust his sword at L. Johnson's chest as a counterattack, but the lion sidestepped and brought his own blade down in a powerful overhead strike. Guilliman raised his hand once again, relying on the strength of his armor, but the force of the blow shattered it. The impact sent Guilliman reeling, his arm numb and deeply wounded from the force of the strike. L. Johnson pressed his advantage, his strikes relentless. Guilliman fought back with all his might, but he was slowly being pushed back. In a final, desperate move, Guilliman went for the weak spot in the shoulder plate. He was creating the whole fight. In a reckless attack, he nearly cut Lion's arm off. Lion fell to his knees in a brief shock, and yet Guilliman's fate was sealed from the start. He showed mercy, he showed restraint, he did not want to kill. He could have finished Lion, but hesitated. Seizing the moment, Lion delivered a powerful thrust exactly in his brother's wounded arm. where armor of fate was shattered. The attack went through Guilliman's flesh, delivering a killing blow to the heart. The lion roared in pain and fury, his eyes blazing with unbridled rage. He did not taste victory. He felled his own brother. He knew he would have lost if Guilliman had the same desire to kill. Lion was stood victorious, yet felt crushing defeat. Guilliman fell to his knees once again, his vision growing dim. El Johnson looked at his dead brother. The fire in El Johnson's eyes dimmed with a look of deepest sorrow. Any chance of unity, Imperium reborn and renewed, died with Guilliman. The all-consuming civil war was inevitable. "You were always the better man, Guilliman," Lion said, his voice heavy with regret. "But in war, such men do not belong." Lion stood up. "Your codex speaks of honor so much, yet you know nothing of it. There is no honor in defeat, however valiant it is." Lion destroyed the evidence of his sin on Callistra once and for all, and banished the heretics and the fallen. However, he knew that Sanguinius would soon come to avenge Guilliman, and this time Lion will be ready. This time he will be the first to strike,